There was a knock on the front door. My brother answered it, and he came in. He says, "There's something at the door that wants to see you." And I went, "What do you mean, something?" And he says, "Well, go and have a look." And I went out to the front door, and there was this a skinhead with this like big long gown on. His dad worked at Lucas's, the car factory, and they used to wear these big brown gowns. He had this big gown on, a chimney brush over his shoulder, no shoes on, and a pump, what we used to call pump sneakers or trainers or whatever, on a dog lead. And he went, "Hello, oh Mazzy." And he said, "Oh no."
What's the funniest story about Bill?
Oh
my God. Trust me to pick that one.
You should know.
I'll tell you a story about We were all we had a day off one time, and we all went to the bar and got absolutely mindless in the bar. I don't think Tony was there. So I'm sitting over one side of this bar, and Bill is sitting at the bar, and he had a big beard in those days. And the bartender didn't know that Tony knew us, and me and Bill were absolutely shit-faced. So then all of a sudden, it's about 7 o'clock in the evening, and Geezer walks in, and he gets drunk, and nobody knows that we're all together, you know. So Tony walks in, and he's the only straight one amongst us, and he walks to the bar, and Bill's sitting there, and then he's like this, I'm over the other side getting these cocktails down me. And he goes to the bartender, and he goes, "Excuse me, sir," he says, "do you have a match?" And he goes, "No, sir, but I have a lighter." He says, "Can I borrow your lighter?" He says, "Certainly, sir." So he lights his lighter, and Bill's sitting there just like nothing's going wrong, and he sets fire to his beard. And it's like a brush fire, and he goes, and the flames start going up his face, and he gets a glass of water, and the bartender's mouth is now like, and he throws a drink. All of a sudden, this bar turns into like one of these Keystone Cup fights, and everything starts flying out. The next minute I do, Big Easy's being dragged out. He's drunk, and he's got a cup, and with a gun to his head, and then he's shouting to the cup, "Go on, fucking shoot me. I'll die for Aston Villa." Now, Aston Villa is a soccer team that he supports in England. And it was just one of those crazy fucking nights, man. And Bill's sitting in the bar, quite nonchalant with a fucking cocktail, and Tony pours a glass of water over his face, puts his face out, and he inhales the smoke, and the bartender is now in rigid shock, and he goes, "Not a bad smoke."
And the name of the song, NIB, didn't have anything to do with it. In fact, it was called Nib at first, and that came because Bill wore the drummer's beard. It used to look like a pen nib.
Days when we were all maniacs, and that's not saying that we're not maniacs now. We're more refined maniacs now, I think. But in the days when we were really, really maniacs, I got nicknamed, and I get nicknamed Nibby, and that came about because Oz and Geezer and myself had indulged in some extremely strong opium one evening.
We used to get fucked up all the time, you know. And I said, I looked at Bill Ward, and he had this big long beard. And I said, "You look like a pen nib." I was stoned. And I said, "Well, what are you going to call this new song?" And I go, "NIB."
And then somebody put 3 dots behind it, and then everybody called it Nativity in Black.
And we didn't play the show that night. Something happened and we couldn't play. So we'd obviously written his story, had a few drinks, gone back to do it. And the next thing, the review came out of the show that we didn't play.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, I came back and some of the bass had already been done. But I went in and I did my own version of that. I didn't want to listen to the bass that was on there, just so that I didn't copy it. Although there was some good parts that I nicked.
I remember doing a show one time, and I think it was down in Nashville, and this guy, he's got a big black robe, he's got all this fucking paint, like Alice Cooper makeup on. And he walks on stage, and suddenly one of the road crew runs in and whacks him over the head with a fucking piece of wood or something. And I go, what the fuck are you doing? And the guy points at him, and he's about to stick this fucking dagger into Tony's chest. That was because he played a bad note.
That was a good night.
No, really. He hadn't been paid for a week.
Tony also had mentioned, I hope it's not the Aussie that I think it is, you know, because they've been to school together and, you know, apparently they'd been, you know, not got on too well at school.
He was a year younger than me at school, and he was a pain at school, basically.
Gino Washington of the Ranger Band in a wild time. It's kind of funny because, I mean, when I joined the blues band, I was still bopping away like a soul band. And I remember him in the Reverie, and his guitar player comes up to me and says, "Hey, Ossie, you don't do that in this kind of band." Save it, you know. What do you mean? I could never stand still. I could never stand me down to look. You got, when you're in a blues band, you got to look a bit miserable and down. I could never do that to get into it.
When you're on stage, you ever think I'm too old for this? Yeah, every bloody night.
Of all the ones for him to pick up.
Every night.
Drugs, oh gosh.
I suppose, no, it didn't really play that much of inspiration, because when we first started, we couldn't afford drugs anyway. I mean, we'd probably have a joint between us once a week, which certainly wouldn't inspire you to write songs.
That took offence, all right.
We just fix the local news on. Yeah, Black Sabbath are in town, they're all Satanists. If you go into the concert, don't look them in the eyes or you'll be possessed.
When I had my heart attack, Ozzy came in and said what he had to say, and that meant an awful lot to me. I'm lying in the hospital bed. He liked to see the blood being drawn, to be honest with you. But that's ours, you know, it's like, you know. And then Tony came in, and Tony said what he had to say, you know, and you just feel that, you know, it's like, that's love. So I'm sitting there wondering if I'm going to be, you know, alive or dead or whatever. I got a good feeling about it because I think I'm going to make it. Then Geezer came to visit me, and he brought me a card, and I thought, well, how nice. And I opened up the card, and it said, "Congratulations on your new baby." And that's Geezer's humour. And I had the best laugh that I could possibly do. I'm lying in bed with all these like things stuck in my arm and these things like all these bleepers and everything else. And he sends me this fucking card that says, "Congratulations on your new baby." And that's love. Life and death, man. Life and death, man.